In a world full of generic synths, one man will show you why Phaseplant 2.0 is the best.
What's good, everybody? My name is Alckemy. Welcome to the channel. Today, I'm super excited to teach you all about Phaseplant 2.0. I'm going to be quickly covering the features from their website and giving a brief description or reading off what's going on. And then I'm going to show you some patches that I've made, including this one, and hopefully educate you all on how awesome the synth is. Currently, I'm just going to say it. It's not even a hot take anymore. Phaseplant's the best synth on the market. You just can't get any better with that. Fight me. I don't care. Yeah, I can back it up. Whatever. Leave it in the comment section. Tell me why you think Pigments is better. I'll fight you. No, just kidding. You like what you like. But what's really important about this is objectively, as far as a creative approach, the workflow aspect of this, the sheer amount of effects and how you can have limitless effects. You can have essentially limitless generators. There is a cap, but essentially, quote unquote. And the amount of not only modulators, but the amount of duplications of modulators you can make is immense. And because of the semi-modular approach, you can just do stuff in this synthesizer that you cannot do in other synths, or the workflow aspect of it makes it 10 times easier. So one of my favorite patches that I always like to make are really cool basses that sound like this. Let me grab the key thing really quick, and it goes a little something like... But Alckemy, we can do that in any other synth. Okay, well, what about now? But Alckemy, we can do that in any other synth. Okay, well, how about now? Kind of curious, is there any other synth that can do this that easily, that quickly? Let me know in the comment section, but as far as I'm concerned, Phaseplant is the answer. And it's so easy to make stuff like this now, and because of the new features that have been updated, it's gotten even easier, and it just sounds amazing. I've got some other patches that I'm going to be showing you, but before we do that, make sure that you guys are subscribed to the channel, and make sure that you guys are going to capture that sale right now, which is just $99 until June 13th. Today is Saturday, May 21st, and if you use my affiliate link, then I get a small portion of it and everybody wins. So yay. All right, let's go ahead and talk about what's going on here. First of all, the MSEG's done the kilohearts way is via the curve. The curve is actually incredible because not only can you create multi-stage envelopes with this, but with this right here, you've actually got windows that you can automate and modulate. And so as opposed to only being able to use the entire curve, you can kind of move the window left and right via any other modulator that makes it really easy to like just create really crazy random stuff with a little bit of control. I know that's a lot of information. It sounds really convoluted, but just imagine if you've got another LFO changing where the shape plays on something, say a filter, you're going to get some crazy sounds out of it. The second thing that I wanted to talk about with this is huge. An LFO table. If you spent a lot of time making making wavetables, then every wavetable that you've ever made can be implemented within the LFO table as an LFO. Now, what's really interesting about this, and I'll show you here later, is that sometimes you have these crazy curves and like crazy harmonics and stuff, but with the smooth knob, it'll kind of make everything mellow out, so that way all of those crazy shapes that you have will be a little bit more usable. This is awesome because if you combine this along with a randomizer, then what's going to happen is you've got all this random movement that is happening, but it's confined between the LFO table because you can randomize the frame. So from 1 to 256 different, shapes that are possible within a single wavetable, it's always going to be moving across that kind of spectrum in that way. So that way you're getting the best of both worlds. Incredibly useful tool. I've actually never seen any other synthesizer do that until now. I'm not saying it's the first. I think that maybe some other ones do, but I'm just happy it's in Phaseplant, and you should be too, because it's awesome. The other stuff that we have is the remap. Now, remapping is really cool because it kind of really just gives you another means of control of your LFOs or any other modulator that you have. Because if you set something like a curve or whatever, it's going to typically only move everything that is either on the line or below this value. So it's almost like LFOing an LFO, but you can actually see what's happening and you can adjust the curve in that way. Very useful for arpeggiators and for lots of other things that you just want an extra means of, like, I don't just want it to be a saw wave. I want it to be a saw wave that's being remapped to a sine wave, and that way it's going to do way wonky different stuff. It's really fun. Now, the other big thing that's really cool is this one in particular for me, but for everyone else, we've got the sample and hold, audio follower, and pitch tracker, which was previously only available within MultiPass and Snap Heap, now within the Phaseplan ecosystem in itself. I use this one a ton for snares, which I like to make snares that kind of sound like this. And I also do it for automating reverb, because you can use it as a pseudo sidechain, or actually it is a sidechain pretty much. But if you've got this huge 100% reverb, every time the audio triggers, it will duck it. And then if you leave a long release time, then it will fade in over time. So you have this constant swelling. It's really cool. I'll be doing more videos about that stuff later. The pitch tracker is kind of something that tries to detect the pitch, and then you can adjust whatever it is that you're modulating over that. It's not perfect, but theoretically you can make some really cool, like, color base focus type things with that and get some really interesting results. Now, within this, all of the new modulators have triggers. And so if you're doing something really interesting, kind of like making a randomly generated kind of like percussion maker or something of the sort, then what you can do is actually set any modulator to trigger this. So right now it's just moving on its own, but whenever we turn this on, you'll see that each time this moves, it's activating a trigger. You can do this with LFOs, you can do it with an envelope. And the reason why this is really cool is because if you have something like an LFO, typically speaking, like if I were to do a randomization to this, then you would only be able to randomize the speed, right? But instead, now you can actually randomize when this triggers, but the LFO speed is going to stay consistent. And so that's why this is something that you can use, again, to just kind of like fortify how interesting that is. Think of it like repeating loops as opposed to speeding the loop up or slowing it down, but just in the case of like MIDI, right? So really awesome. So the other really big thing is that you actually have the ability to like follow your modulation system. And why this is so significant is for two people who falls into the entire category of sound designers, which is the beginners who are able to kind of figure out where they're going. So if I'm like, oh, I want to go here, but I forgot where I was, you can see that there's a paper trail here, or I guess a neon trail rather, that's like, oh, that's where it is. That's where that's going. And this allows you to navigate. And for people that are a little bit more experienced in sound design, this makes it really easy to, I guess, dissect complicated patches from people that maybe you look up to, or maybe stuff that somebody else made that you're trying to figure out what they do. So now everybody that has access to the Eternum packs that I put out has a much easier time to figure out what exactly I did because of this. I actually think that's a good thing because, well, that's how you get better at sound design, and that's what this channel is about. The other thing that's really cool is that you can group both modulators rather, and effects. So if you go here and you go new group, then you just drag stuff in and take a look. Now you've got a group, you can turn the whole thing off at once, makes it a lot easier. And you can rename this LFO stuff. This actually wasn't in the beta, so I'm really happy that you can do that now because it will really help you figure out, like, if one thing is going to one area, another thing is going to another area, it adds an extra layer of organization. Likewise, if you click here and go new group, you can also toss effects into this as well. And it makes it really easy for you to stay organized and navigate or turn everything off and on at once. Now, this is going to sound crazy, but my personal favorite feature is this guy right here. I know that seems crazy, but I've had to pull up this preset every single time in the previous versions of this to set a macro to the mix of these. So I do this, I do this, I do this, this. Oh gosh, yeah, pretty tedious. And then I'd have to turn them all down. So I would usually swipe them all up like that and then swipe them all down, kind of like so. And now instead of doing all that and having to modulate this to a single mix, I can just close out of this and set this macro here to your mix. Boom. So anything that you put in here doesn't really matter what it is. let's say something crazy like that, within all of these effects and whatnot, I don't have to do that anymore. As you can see here, that macro is still mapped. Now I just use that here. There's that macro that I was talking about from before. So that process has streamlined and made things so much easier for me to make really complicated, I guess, like modulation systems without having to worry about like taking another macro up. Speaking of, everything is also MPE. So you can add your MPE timbre, you can also add your pressure, and then of course you've got your velocity of aftertouch, release, and both, which is pretty neat. And then something that was not available in the previous version was that you've got all of these things that can be automated. So beforehand, it was just the macros. And now if you want to change something, say a knob right here with the filter cutoff, you can right click and go assign to automation slot. And now whenever you have that, you just find the adjacent slot, or the proper slot rather, and then you can automate that stuff. So that's really freaking cool. Now, with all that being said, like Faceplant has already been incredibly amazing. And I just am so happy that this new modulation system and stuff has come about. But there are a couple of things that I do hope that they add in the future. They kind of already addressed this, that is coming out in the future, which is the granular engine, which I know that like that's a huge thing. They've already said in their barbecue that they're working on it, but that's like the biggest thing. The only other thing that I think that I would really want is a wave shaper. And the reason why is because that would make custom distortion making pretty much just like tenfold. So if they add granular and they add in a custom wave shaper, then I can't really complain about anything else because it already has all of the stuff that you particularly need. So with that being said, there are a couple of other knickknacks that we have. You can slow down the LFO rate below 0.10, which previously you couldn't. You can actually make it stop, so that way whenever you hit a MIDI, it'll re-trigger. So this is awesome, especially if you have this in mind for using something like an arpeggiator. You can also use this on LFOs and stuff, but that re-trigger option, especially with random, is really freaking cool. I'm going to take a quick look at this and make sure that I've got everything else kind of talked about. Bug fixes are great. Modulation stuff, improved visualization, automation. I think that pretty much covers everything. So with that being said, let's go ahead and demo a few sounds. If you're interested in any of these, the Faceplant stream, which is about 4 hours long, was made before this, and I'm using all the sounds to go in between. I will say at some point I've got some factory content being released. It's not ready yet, and I can't show that, but as soon as it is, then we'll drop it in the factory content, so you guys should be excited. So here is demo number 1. Let's play that at a higher octave. Love it. And by the way, all of these patches that I'm going to be playing for you, except for this one, are available for the ALCAHES members for the YouTube memberships. So the next one that we have is the bass that I already showed you, but let's go ahead and listen to that one again in case if you missed it. Love it. Next one. This is a percussion maker, I believe, which sounds like this. And I particularly use this stuff for just making custom percussion / Foley. Next up, we've got the subby drone that we listened to from beforehand. Then we've got a snare, which sounds like this. Maybe. There's that envelope follower I was telling you about. Then the last thing that we have is something that I wanted to lead up to and mention, which is why even just having MultiPass and Snap Heap is such a big deal. Now, currently, Snap Heap is still available for free, but they're actually including a large majority of the snap-ins. And so with that, you can actually take anything that is outside of the phase plant and apply it to your favorite synths. Now, right now I'm using MultiPass, but Snap Heap would be just as doable, but this is amazing. Now, I've got so much to talk about, so just bear with me here. The first thing that I wanted to mention was that if you look at the bottom, you can actually see that we have modulators and pretty much an infinite amount on MultiPass and Snap Heap, where before you had 2 LFOs, you had an audio follower, a pitch tracker, and a sample and hold maker. Now, whatever it is that you want to use, you can have as many as you want. And this is excellent because this begins to create all of the amazing kind of like stuff that Faceplant used to offer that was completely unique that can now be added with in-depth, with crazy modulation to any other synth. So if I were to just play this vital patch that we have here, it's just a normal release that is vanilla. But once we turn this on with our new mix knob here, you can see that we're able to pretty much neurofy just a very basic sound by stacking these new, by stacking MultiPass or Snap Heap on top of themselves. So when you get like super crazy with it and you stack multiple things, like maybe Snap Heap along with MultiPass, you can see that you've got this whole ecosystem to work with. And Snap Heap in particular has actually 7 windows now instead of, I think it was 5, I want to say. But if we pull up any of my presets, maybe something like this, and then we turn the mix on, you can see that you can get some really insane sounds with not having to go too far. So make sure that when you guys are using all those Faceplant / MultiPass / Snap Heap racks that you guys are saving that, because you'll see that they extend outside of the presets themselves, and that alone is worth making at least Snap Heap owning on its own right. So that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for checking out my sound demo. If you want to see how the majority of these sounds were made, you can watch the live stream, and I hope that you guys learned something. What about you guys? How do you think this new patch comes about? Is it cool? Is it really amazing? Or do you still have a huge feature wish list that Faceplant needs before you switch from Vital or something? Or, do you want something completely different entirely? Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you later. Don't forget to like